We're back with Father Abraham. We've not yet finished walking through the story. Not quite finished gleaning nuggets from his life, from his experiences. Today we are in Genesis chapter 14. And this is the account of Sodom and Gomorrah being attacked and Lot being taken away. And Abram going and getting him back. On his way back, he encounters Melchizedek and another king. And that's it. And that's it. But there's so much more inside of that. There's so much more inside of that. Genesis chapter 14, it just opens up the first two verses. And it came to pass that in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Kedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. So you got the king of 4 cities deciding they want to make war with the king of 5 cities, with the kings of 5 cities. 4 versus 5. But they decided we're going to go ahead and make war. And they do. They go in, they win. Simple. You would think, though, that because, not numerically speaking, population-wise or whatever, but 4 cities, that they wouldn't be able to stand up against the armies of 5 cities. I don't know. But that's the way it worked out. Those kings, they came in against Sodom and Gomorrah, all of those 5 kings, they won. They didn't just win, they didn't come to take over and rule that land. They just wanted their stuff. Y'all can stay. Y'all, whoever lives, survives, whatever, but we're taking all your stuff. We're taking some of your, we're going to take your people, we're going to take your stuff, and that's going to be it. They didn't know who they were messing with. They didn't know that in their desire to get richer, in their desire to take all these people, in their desire to take all of their stuff, they didn't know that they were messing with the nephew / son of Abram. They didn't know. Not that, but in their arrogance, I'll say in their arrogance, in their confidence of taking on 5 cities, they didn't care. We're 4 cities, but we're going to fight these 5 cities and we're going to take all their stuff. So we don't care. Even if they had known who Abram was. Their confidence, they didn't care. They won. They made off with their goods. Verse 12, 11. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and their victuals, and they went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Plain, simple, cut and dry. Verse 13, and there came one that had escaped, and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, and these were confederate with Abram. These were friends. These were allies with Abram. It says, and when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. So this is how Abram ran his things. that he had at least 318 trained soldiers in his house that were born in his household. He had at least, because he went and chose 318. So Abram, with much cattle, many sheep, camels, he-asses, she-asses, men servants, maid servants, had all of this stuff. And he knew that he was a man of much affluence, much sustenance. So he had to protect his stuff. He knew it was necessary to protect his stuff. So he has trained soldiers. He's got trained fighters in there. Who trained him? I don't know. Maybe Abram himself. He might have had some skills. He might have had hands. I don't know. But they were trained to defend. They were trained to fight. So when Abram gets the news that his son, his nephew, his brother mentioned here, his relative, was taken, he goes and takes 318 men. He had to know. The guy that came and told him had to tell him. These 4 kings went up against these 5 kings, and they won. And they took, and Lot was taken with them. Abram, we don't have it in here at all, where Abram was like, well, see, who can I get on my side with me to go fight against these 4 armies? What authorities do I need to contact? These 4 kings, these 5 kings got defeated, so I'm not going to them. They already, that wouldn't be good. Who can I go? There's no contemplation there. He went inside his camp, got his men. They're like, come on, just come on. We got to go get Lot. Come on. Again, no contemplation. Don't take it the wrong way, but he didn't even pray. He said, this needs to be done. I'm going to go do this. But think about his mindset. God is with me. Yes. I know God. Yes. God has promised. God has spoken. God has touched. And this is still even after the first documented account of him lying about Sarah being his wife, being his sister, passing her off as his sister. Okay? But he says, okay, this has to be done. This has to be done. And he's got the confidence of knowing that God is with him. Mm-hmm. So he takes his 318. Verse 15, and he divided himself against them, and he and his servants by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. Came at them at night, jumped them. 318 against the armies of 4 cities, and they ran. The armies ran against Abram and his 318. They ran. Smote them, put such a hit on them, and then had to chase them. I'm thinking, they didn't get Lot, they didn't get everything they needed right away, and so the armies are fleeing and they're chasing them, and I can almost picture Abram and his men behind them going, you better run. You bet, but we're coming. There was a knowing inside of Abraham. There was a knowing from his experience with God that said, I don't care. It doesn't matter how many. I'm picking the ones that I know I need, and I'm going against these armies to save my son, my nephew, my brother. Technically, it was his nephew, but he had treated him as his son because he had been caring for Lot since Lot's father died. And they're referring to him as his brother, as his kindred here. And even to the point where Abram had to have felt that Lot would be his heir because he had none. Even in the moment when they separated, he told Lot, choose your land. And I'm going to choose whatever you take, I'll take what's left. And God blessed the what's left. Anyway, but when Abram learns that Lot is taken, there's that knowing. There's that confidence in who he is in God. In who he is in God. Think about it though. Abram has gone from traveling into Egypt, fearing a king enough to lie about Sarah. Fearing a king, one king, fearing for his life. And so he says, well, I'm going to pass Sarah off as my sister. King compensates him for it. God rectifies the situation, brings Sarah back unharmed. Abram presses on. He goes on, and now he's living here. But when he hears Lot is in trouble, Lot has been taken by the cities of the kings of 4 cities. Come on, y'all, we got to go get Lot. There's that confidence that he had in who God was.
Yes.
After having deceived, having lied about Sarah. But his experience with God, he didn't relegate and encapsulate it back to that moment. He didn't confine it to his fallen moment. Because if he had confined it to that moment, we don't know what would have happened to Lot. If he'd have confined it to that moment, to that weak moment, so much more would have been thwarted and pushed aside. But because he was able to look at the big picture of his relationship with God, because he was able to remember who God is above what he had done, because he was able to maintain that proper perspective on things. What caused him to fall and make that mistake, now 4 times greater, he's charging after them. He's gathering up his troops and he's going after them. And he's not just going after them. He's not just sending out threats or anything like that. He doesn't send a message and say, send Lot back or I'm coming. I'm coming.
Yes.
I'm coming. I'm coming. And he armed his trained servants. Come on, y'all. We're not going to here empty-handed. We're going to get Lot, and we ain't playing. And they caught him, divided himself, and he pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. And he brought back all the goods, and also brought again his brother Lot and his goods, and the women also, and the people. So he went in to get Lot, but he routed those 4 armies such that he was able to bring back everything that they took. They put such a whooping on those 4 armies that the armies, the men of those armies, kings, leaders, and everybody else, they were like, oh, we got to get out of here. Forget all this other stuff. There wasn't even a command that went forward. They were so concerned for their own skin that they had left it all. But they still got routed. They still took a beat down. They still had hands put on. Had to catch these hands, as the kids say. They still had, it was no good. It was no good for them. So, Abram, he hears, gets his men, they go. They rout the armies. They bring back everything that they took. He's got Lot. He's got the women that were taken. He's got all the people that were taken, and he's coming back with all of those goods, with all that plunder. He's coming back with all of that now, just on his way back. Verse 17. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter. Not his victory over, not his win against, but the slaughter of Kedorlaomer and of the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale. So by now news has come. Abram slaughtered these people. Slaughtered them. Because of what? Because he went back after his family. Abram and his 318 against the armies of 4 cities who had defeated the armies of 5 cities. He knew who he was. He knew whose he was. And in that confidence went forward. And in that confidence went forward and slaughtered Kedorlaomer and the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale. Verse 18, and Melchizedek, the king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Melchizedek brought forth the bread and the wine. The bread and the wine. Melchizedek is a king, but he's also a high priest of God. He comes out to meet Abram, and he brings bread and wine. He comes out and ministers unto him. Bread. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Remember God says, he's bringing the new wine forward. So Melchizedek comes out and he's bringing the word. He's ministering unto Abram. And he doesn't just minister unto Abram. Verse 19, he says, and he blessed him. Be blessed, Abram, of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth. And he blessed the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thine hand. So Melchizedek, he comes out. He's a king, the king of Salem. But he's also a high priest. He comes out, he greets Abram, and he ministers unto Abram. Blesses Abram, blesses the Lord. That's a time of worship and a time of fellowship on his way back from battle. He's met by this king, this high priest, and he ministers unto him. Blesses Abram, blesses God in their presence, so that time of worship, that time of fellowship touched Abram so. And the end of it, and the end of verse 20, and he gave him tithes of all, gave him 1/10 of all. This is your first tithe in the word. This is your first tithe in the word. And it is given to this is the first tithe, giving of the 10th. And it's given to Melchizedek. Melchizedek is not a Levite priest. He's a priest of an unknown order. So this is not going to Levitical priests who received what they got in order to, as part of because they themselves couldn't earn a living because of the time ministering in the temple. But Abram ministered this 10th unto Melchizedek because he ministered unto Abram. And remember that Jesus was declared a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. So the priesthood that we are after as being the co-heirs of Christ, recreated, are after the order of Melchizedek, not the Levitical priest. Because I've heard my friend Pastor Lowry, he's preached that we're not Levitical priests. We're not of the Levitical priesthood. Don't associate ourselves with the Levitical priesthood. And that is no greater truth, because we are priests after Christ, who is a priest after the order of Melchizedek, of unknown order. So there is that tie. But the significance of that is, as Melchizedek as king, Melchizedek as high priest, when he encounters Abram, he goes and ministers unto Abram. And he makes an offering, and he blesses Abram, and he blesses God in that. And of all that there was, they were coming back with of the stuff, because Abram went and fought for that stuff, so it was his. It was rightly his. To the winner goes the spoils. So that was all his stuff. And he rendered a tenth of it unto Melchizedek. Wow. Verse 21. Total contrast. And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, give me the persons and take the goods thyself. And he says, again, verse 21, and the king of Sodom said unto Abram, give me the persons and take the goods to thyself. The king of Sodom, whose armies lost to Kedorlaomer and the other three kings, Abram goes and fights, wins all of that stuff, gets all of that stuff back. On his way back, he encounters Melchizedek, who blesses him, who ministers unto him. So he submits a tithe unto Melchizedek. Then he encounters the king of Sodom, and the king of Sodom has the audacity to now, after you lose, now you want to be king. Now you want to be king over Abram. Now you want to come out talking about, give me the people, and you keep the goods. You didn't fight for these. This is not your stuff. You can't come taking what I fought for. You can't do that. And here, you keep all the goods. Like you doing him a favor. You lost, son. You lost. You 0-1 in this. I'm 1-0. You can't come dictating to me. Abram's talking to a king. He hasn't answered yet. We're not there yet. But Abram is dealing with the king. He's already dealt with the king in Melchizedek. A king and high priest in Melchizedek. And he was blessed, ministered to by Melchizedek. He blessed Melchizedek. So now this other king comes along. And he didn't even ask. He just says, give me the persons and you take the goods. And Abraham said to the king, verse 22, I have lifted up my hand unto the Lord, the most high God, the possessor of heaven and earth. What were we just thinking about? Lifting up hands. The lifting of the hands. The lifting of the hands unto the Lord. Yes. Surrender. The lifting of the hands unto the Lord, saying, Lord, pick me up. Yes. Lord, lift me up. Lord, embrace me. Lord, keep me. Abram now says, I lift up my hands unto the Lord, the most high God, the possessor of heaven and earth. You, loser king, he didn't say it in an insulting way, you loser king, who used to own this stuff, lost it by virtue of not having an army able to defend. Now that I went out and fought for this stuff and I won this stuff, guess what? You can't have any. Not only can you not have any, but I'm not accepting your offer. I'm not accepting your offer. That's what he says in verse 23, that I will not take even to a shoe latchet. I'm not taking anything. Not even a shoe latchet. There's nothing you can offer me. greatest to the smallest. I will not take anything that is thine. You cannot buy me. You cannot. Then, okay, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich. Look at the power that's in that, in what Abram just said. Now, again, back here, when he feared for his life, when he let Sarah go, and the king compensated him for that, he received all of that. He took all of that. He took all of that in. There was no great concern about what that king might say. And just for comparison's sake, the Pharaoh in Egypt did not know who Abram was. Abram was a man traveling through. He saw Sarah. He didn't see Sarah. He heard about Sarah and had to have her and compensated Abram for it. But as soon as those great plagues came upon his household, sent her back. What's wrong with you, man? Why did you do this? What did I do to you, man? Go on, get. Go on, get. The Pharaoh, the king, the Pharaoh, didn't know who Abram was. Abram hadn't done anything. All Abram was doing was trying to travel through. So he took Abram's wife, and again, God intervened in all of that. Now, on the other side of all of this, coming back from victory, Abram in his 3:18 coming back from victory, two kings. He encounters now two kings who know Abram, who know of Abram, who know Abram's accomplishments now. And the one ministers to him, offers him the bread and the wine, representations of Jesus himself, offers him that. And Abram offers the time unto. And the second king, now knowing who Abram is, knowing Abram's accomplishments, knowing what Abram's done, seeing what Abram is bringing back. And he wants to take. Not just take the people, but in taking the people, he's wanting to take some glory back. He's wanting to take some glory back. Now he's wanting to try to fix his name by associating himself with Abram in that manner. Give me the people, and you keep the goods. Give me the people, and you keep the goods. So that when it's all said and done, he can say, yeah, we lost the war, but I got the people back. I got the people back. No, you didn't. You didn't. You tried to go and usurp some authority. You tried to go and exert kingly authority in an area where you had no dominion, had no power, had no reign. And Abram shut you down. But Abram already had in his heart, in his plan, what he was going to do with all that he had gotten. All his plunders, all his spoils of war, if you will. So, no, I can't accept your deal, King of Sodom. I won't accept your deal because you're going to say, on the other side of this, you will not be able to say, I made Abram rich. I made Abram rich. In verse 24, he says, save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me. All we're really taking for ourselves is what was necessary for the trip. It was necessary to get from the place of victory back to where we're going. That's all we're really taking for ourselves. That's really all. Abram, he wasn't in it to make himself rich. He wasn't in it to elevate his name. He was only in it to save Lot. He was only in it to save Lot. And everybody else who was saved, everybody else who was released from captivity, everybody else whose life was spared from whatever life it was going to be under the hands of the four kings. They are fringe benefiters, if you will. They're just receiving the fringe benefits of Abram's dedication to his son, of Abram's confidence in God, of Abram's confidence in his relationship with God, and his confidence in the very presence of God in his life. So because he carried this confidence, so many others benefited. So many others benefited. When all he was doing was going to get Lot. And I like this part right here. The last part of the verse. He says, and then he mentions Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, and let them take their portion. We go back to verse 13. He says, and there came one that escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, as these were confederate with Abraham. They were his allies. Then they didn't even go help. They didn't send anybody to help, but they were Abram's allies. They were Abram's allies. So Abram, as he's coming back with all these spoils, he's going to give them a chance to take a portion of, because they were his allies. He's building and strengthening his ties. He's adding to the lives of others. Yeah, he went out and fought. Yeah, he and his men went out and routed the armies, slaughtered Kedorlaomer and the other three kings. And coming back, gave a portion unto the king, the high priest, that ministered unto him. The king that tried to take, that tried to steal, tried to misappropriate association with Abram, was shut down. No, I'm not taking your deal. So that you won't be able to say, you made me rich. So that, no, you can't. So I'm not taking that deal. But when he comes back, when he gets back, his intent is to all those who are his allies, to give them a portion. So Abram in his victory ministered to them, rendered unto, put a tenth of his winnings, his earnings, his increase unto the one that ministered to him. And to the one that tried to misappropriate, the king in authority, who tried to misappropriate an association with Abraham, tried to buy his way, if you will, by allowing Abram to keep what he had fought for and won. Trying to give a command that you give me the people. Abram's not impressed. He's not impressed. Abram went from fearing a Pharaoh, fearing what might happen, what hadn't even happened yet, but he feared it would happen, and it happened, okay? From fearing that, from a Pharaoh, from one king. And Egypt was a pretty bad place. One of the most powerful okay, cities. But now you have the kings of 4 cities. But Abram has now reassociated. He's adjusted his perspective on his relationship with God. Where over here, he didn't trust God to be able to keep him. So he devised his own plan. But now he sees. After all of that. And the blessing that God has spoken now. The promise that God has given him. The promise of a land. The promise of seed. The promise of that your descendants shall be as numerous as the dust. When we think of dust, we don't even think of a number for dust. Trying to number little dust particles. You can't even see a dust particle, much less number it. But he's got that promise now. That association, that just flat out hearing from God like that. And he's able to, in that time of what should have been distress, what should have been worry, what should have been concern, what should have been fear, what should have been all these other negative things, what should have been anxiety, all became ashes. all became action based on knowing who he was, knowing whose he was, and knowing based on what he knew, based on who he knew. There was a lot that he did not know. I'll feel fairly safe in saying that he did not know how many men he would be facing. He hadn't. There was no report where he could go out and find out. Well, okay, what were the 4 cities? What were their, fighting forces like? Nah, there was no consideration to that. As soon as he heard it, he gathered his men and he went. He gathered his men, he armed them, and he went. So therein is that relationship, that association, that knowing of God's presence in your life. That knowing that enables us to go forward and carry out what it is. Read through this as many times as you want to. There's nowhere in there where God told Abram, go get Lot. He didn't say it. There was no command from God. Go get Lot. Go get your kindred. Go get your brother. Go get your brother's son. You go get him. No, that was not a command. But there was a knowing of what had to be done. Based on that situation. He didn't interpret anything. I gotta save my nephew. I gotta save him. Purpose in his heart that he was gonna do it, knowing that the Lord was with him, and he did it. And coming back from it, he honored God. He honored the one who came to him and blessed God, and he honored God by blessing that person. And now in dealing with a king face to face, king trying to misappropriate, a king trying to improperly associate himself with the name of Abram. But Abram did not receive. Abram did not yield. Abram did not bend knee to this king. But what he had earned, what he had fought for, he brought back to share with his allies. To share with his allies. His allies who did not help. But they were his allies. They were his allies. And he strengthened his bond with his allies. So from all of this, what we want to take from this, what we want to remember is Abram keeping the right perspective on his relationship with God. Abram not focusing on his weak moment, not focusing on his fall, not focusing on what he did wrong, but remembering who God was. Remembering that God is greater than the situation, greater than our fall, greater than our circumstance, greater than where he did not see God in the proper perspective, in his allowing fear to set in, fear of Pharaoh. That transformed itself through the situation, through God's revelation, through God's intervention, to now where he hears of bad news and he just purposes in his heart what needs to be done. And he does it. And in doing so, man of God comes out and blesses him, blesses God, and he blesses the man of God right back. And then at the end of all, he comes back and he blesses his allies. So what remember that God's blessings are not just for us, they're for those around us as well. Sometimes we share what we earned in our fighting with those who did not fight with us, but they are our allies. Blessed to be a blessing. The pipeline of blessing, not a reservoir. Abram he did not purpose that everything that he was that he had won, that he had earned, that he had fought fought for and won, then it was all for him. Because if he had done that, he wouldn't have blessed Melchizedek. If he had done that, he wouldn't have purposed that he was going to share with his allies. But his purpose wasn't to make himself rich. His purpose wasn't to gather up all these things for himself. His purpose was to honor God. His purpose was to give God glory. So that's our lesson from Abram today. Keep a right perspective on our relationship with God. Don't focus on our downs. Keep it all in the right perspective. Remember who God is. Remember who we are. Remember whose we are. Remember who we are in him. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.